The forgotten news. Jesse Smollett, Dobbs versus Jackson, Omicron and what that means for us. The fact that the flu has completely disappeared off the face of the earth and Americans trapped behind Afghanistan lines. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance.
Welcome to the program, friend. I will be in Washington, D.C. tomorrow. I ask you for your prayers. I'll be at the Supreme Court when the court hears Dobbs versus Jackson. This is the case in which the Mississippi Attorney General has asked the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade. We expect there to be a lot of people at the court. There will be shouting, there will be preaching, there will be demonstrations, there will be signs, there will be speeches, there will be a ton of media, and yours truly will be there as well. I was actually present for the Webster decision in 1989, and then the Casey decision in 1992. I go back quite a few decades, evidently. We'll be there. We'll be there standing for the babies, calling for the court to overturn Roe versus Wade, but also preaching that blood talks to God. As we consider in today's program some of the headlines that are forgotten or twisted or pushed aside because they don't fit the current narrative, let us remember that every day in America, as many children are killed in an abortion mill as died in the attack on 9/11. Every single day. More than 3,000 innocent human lives are snuffed out. And in any world that was governed by sanity and morality, this would be news. It's a forgotten news story. Think of the little boys, the little girls whose lives are prematurely snuffed out, and the generations that would have followed from them, because most of them would have reached adulthood, most of them would have had children of their own. All of those are obliterated over 3,000 times every day in America. So what will the Supreme Court do? I'm not a prognosticator. I admit that I'm afraid. I admit it. I've been in this battle since the 1980s. Sandra Day O'Connor, appointed by President Reagan, betrayed us. Souder, Anthony Kennedy, betrayed us. These were supposed to be the votes. These were people that were appointed by Republicans. These were supposed to be the votes on the Supreme Court that overturned Roe versus Wade. In the Webster decision, the minority, it was a 5-4 decision, 1989, the minority said, let's overturn Roe. Roe needs to be revisited. So then Casey came along in 1992, and the majority opinion was written by none other than Anthony Kennedy, a Reagan appointee, pro-abortion Catholic. I mean, he pretends to be Catholic. So I don't know what's going to happen. I was an avid supporter of President Trump. I still am. He made good on his promise to appoint judges to the Supreme Court that were on a certain list that was allegedly vetted by conservatives. But one of the problems that the Republicans have is they don't just sit in a room and ask a judge, will you overturn Roe versus Wade, yes or no? It's a simple question. Now, the Democrats, they have it as a litmus test. They'll do it. They'll ask one of their appointees, will you overturn Roe or will you support it? Will you support a woman's right to choose? They always ask, and they always get the answer in the affirmative. Yes, I will support Roe. The Republicans, for some reason, don't do it. Anyway, I digress. We've got a lot to talk about. When I come back from this break, we're going to talk about some of the forgotten stories that don't fit the narrative that the Democrats and the left-wing media are trying to push on us. When we come back, we'll start with Jesse Smollett. Don't go away. Welcome back, friend. Off the air when we were talking, the question came up, well, what would happen if they overturn Roe? Well, on the positive, states like Mississippi, Alabama would immediately make child killing illegal from conception forward. And then states like New York, New York, California, and Illinois would become bastions. They would become the three main hubs of child killing in the whole country. And then people would cross state lines. Oh, I can't kill my baby in Tennessee, I'll shoot north to Illinois. Oh, I mean, you can do the math. So Arizona, I can't kill my baby, or I'll have to go over to California. We would then get into a 50 battleground because of 50 states, but ultimately it would go to a federal law that excludes the Supreme Court from reviewing it, that made it illegal in all 50 states to kill a baby, much as a federal law governs polygamy. It's a federal law that you can only have one spouse at a time in America. And that was brought to us as a response to the Mormons. I digress. All right. Jussie Smollett. As you know, he faked a hate crime. He hired two brothers, gave them $3,500. They rehearsed their lines. They were supposed to pour gasoline on him, and then they lost their nerve and decided to pour bleach on him because it would be a little bit safer. They did it in front of what they thought was going to be a security camera that captured the whole thing. The camera was turned in the wrong direction. When he went and he reported this crime, it was a false report, okay? It didn't happen. The network that he was working for Empire, had offered him more security because he got a letter with a stick figure of him hanging, and they never figured out who sent the letter. So the network offered to up his security, and he turned it down. He files this false claim. The police force in Chicago spent 3,000 man-hours investigating this. 3,000 man-hours. When I think of how many crimes in this country have been committed, and 20 man-hours, 30, 40 is a lot, 3,000 man-hours? And it was false. It was false. And when it happened, boy, the media jumped all over it, and one of the people involved was shouting MAGA slogans. I mean, they brought this all the way back around to President Trump. President Trump's a racist, and anyone who supports President Trump is a racist. And poor Jussie Smollett is a victim of a homosexual African-American hate crime. You know, it's funny, it's not in the news right now. The trial's in progress right now. It's a forgotten news story because it doesn't fit their narrative. We've got people in control of the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, etc., who are liars, who just fabricate stuff. They know that they're lying, and they keep the lie going. And then when the truth is so overwhelming, they just start going like this. They look the other way. Oh, look over here. Let's go to another news story. Another situation like this, a forgotten news story, we'll see what happens, are the Cuomo brothers. You've got former Governor Cuomo, and then you've got the Cuomo who's on CNN, his brother, his kid brother. Well, it turns out, believe it or not, that the younger Cuomo, the CNN host, who has the #1 rated primetime news show on CNN right now, he was using staff at CNN to investigate the people in New York that were complaining about his brother for sex harassment. He was trying to help his brother. He was using the resources of CNN to help somebody who was accused repeatedly of sexual harassment. Now, it's interesting because the Rolling Stone, the magazine, led the charge in the last 48 hours and said, look at what he has done that would have gotten anyone else fired. So there's people from NPR, National Public Radio, there's people from various news outlets saying, he's got to go. He's got to be fired. I think that they'll probably fire him or maybe put him on administrative leave for 2 weeks. I mean, after all, he is their number one host. Just like Brian Williams at NBC getting demoted when they found out that he was lying. But it just shows the rank hypocrisy and the untrustworthiness of these people. Or let's just all admit it. I'm a TV host. I've been a TV host for years. I've been a radio host for years before that. I've interviewed some really cool people, some big shots, some bad people. But I have an agenda. I admit it. I know what I want to cover. I know what I want to ignore. And I know that when I cover abortion or marriage or the transgender agenda or President Trump and his political agenda or the southern border or this new variant, which we're going to get to in the next section, I know what I'm doing and I admit it. These people know what they're doing and they won't admit it. They pretend that they're neutral journalists, just simply reporting the facts. It's not true. Most of them are deceitful in what they cover and even more deceitful in what they ignore. So I invite you to try and follow the Jussie Smollett trial. He's being tried for a felony, okay? A felony because of what he did illegally that ended up costing the taxpayers of Chicago hundreds of thousands of dollars, 3,000 man-hours of police that work that could have been done, maybe investigating some of the shootings that happened that weekend or the weekend before or the weekend before. Think of how many young black men are gunned down every weekend in Chicago. Every weekend. And how few man-hours are used to look into those crimes. Boy, but when a Hollywood actor, Jussie Smollett, says that he was a victim and there was MAGA involved, thousands of hours are suddenly sprung into action. And it was all for a lie. And now, most of the news is completely ignoring it. I'll be right back. Welcome back, friend. Here is the NPR headline, National Public Radio headline. Omicron could be the most infectious COVID-19 variant yet. All right, so this is hype. It's designed to get people nervous. Mask, no mask. Jab, no jab. Booster, no booster. Every 6 months, a booster. Omicron, oh my goodness. You know, there's not a single case yet in the United States, okay? And they don't know how dangerous it is. No clue. Now, let's look at COVID-19. No, let's back up. We have a friend who died from COVID. He had just gone through chemo. His organs were beat to smithereens. Went to the hospital. We called the wife, said, get him on ivermectin right away, please. Hospital would not give it to him. Would not give him hydroxychloroquine. Wouldn't do it. Wouldn't let her be with him. Put him on a ventilator, and he died. I don't know if he got Recidivir. Now, Recidivir is the drug that is known to cause damage to internal organs. And the number of people who get it while they're on a ventilator and then die is astronomical. So we've been fed this narrative. And then the flu goes away. How can that not be a news story? How can that not be a news story? One of the forgotten news headlines. That last year the flu had, under 7,000 cases? We're a country that has 25 to 45 million cases of the flu every year, sometimes more, sometimes 60 million. We have the flu. It's just a part of our lives here, okay? They call it flu season for a reason. But last year, by some miracle, the flu disappeared. The CDC reported under 7,000 cases of the flu in a nation of 300 million people that normally has 30 or 40 million or more cases of the flu every year. It just flat out disappeared. This is an absurdity. So where did all those flu cases go? Maybe they were lumped in with, I don't know. You think about it. Where could they have been lumped in with? What disease was in the news day in, day out that possibly could have absorbed the flu numbers? So the Delta variant was supposed to terrify us. Then, now it's the Omicron. Maybe they should call it the Omnicon. It's a con job, the Omni, everywhere. And everywhere, let's call it the Omnicon. Let's put that out. Actually, better be careful. YouTube will probably give us a strike. Well, you heard it here first. The Omnicon. They're conning us everywhere. These are forgotten news stories. So in Europe, where they have more of an iron fist, look what's happening in Austria. Look at what's happening in Australia. In various European countries, people are starting to riot. They're starting to burn stuff down. And these are not, your BLM rioters of America, where you got hundreds of riots 2 summers ago that, where they're burning stuff down, attacking government buildings and not being prosecuted. These are working class people who just want their lives back, who don't want to be forced to get a vaccination that is scientifically unproven, that did not go through the normal process of vaccinations. These are people who don't trust their government or want to maintain personal autonomy over their bodies. So now we have the new variant, and they are going to do everything they can to terrify us. The governor of the state of New York issued a state of emergency for New York State, granting her unilateral powers without a single case in New York State. Not one. So these are people who are using fear and a disease that is a true disease, okay? They're using those two things together to ravage our constitutional rights. And what's particularly instructive right now to all of us is how much how many of us are willing to sacrifice our freedom in order to have security? How many of us are going to believe a narrative without digging deep? How many of us are going to take government money? How many of us are going to let our businesses be destroyed? Etc., etc., etc. It's scary. And these are, again, a part of the forgotten stories, the uncovered stories. They want to browbeat the governor of Florida because he's a bad man, because he doesn't lock everything down like the governor of New York. But the COVID numbers in Florida, under Governor DeSantis' leadership, they're the best numbers in the country. And it's one of the most open states in the country. So clearly something is amiss here. And now Biden is starting to really wring his hands. Because Powell, not the head of the Fed, one of the big economic big shots said Omicron could really impact the economy. Really? Like the economy isn't already impacted? Eggs have gone up 50%, bread's gone up 50%, gasoline prices are through the roof. I mean, what more can happen? Evidently a lot more. So now Biden's starting to get really nervous because the midterm elections are coming, folks, and there is going to be a trouncing if things continue the way they are. I'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program, friend. During the break, I was looking at some old news, like a month, 6 weeks ago from MSNBC. There was a new Delta variant discovered in London that may be even more contagious than the Delta variant, and now that's gone. And now we're on to Omicron. Don't we see that they're just trying to keep us whipped up in fear? I've got one other bit of funny news that I need to talk about. You remember the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg? We tormented him. Throw a couple of those pictures up of us going after him. That's me in the devil outfit. Yeah, that's me. We followed him and tormented him in multiple states because he's a standard bearer of evil. All right, so-called homosexual marriage. It's an abomination. I mean, it's an offense to God and man. So anyway, there's a headline from CNN saying that Buttigieg might be the new standard bearer of the Democrat Party. Wondering if he and Harris, Vice President Harris, are at odds with one another. And this story has legs. It's still going. So I want to just ask, I want to step back and ask, in what universe do they think that a young homosexual male could be the president of the United States? Listen, I know that the homosexual movement has won a lot of its battles, and those of us who support Christian morality, we've lost, all right? We just have. The game's not over, but we're not doing well right now. But this shows their desperation and how idiotic they are and how out of touch with America they are, that they could even run a headline like that. It shows that they're crazy. All right, I've got to go. Pray for me. I'll be in D.C. tomorrow, and I'll report to you what happened on Thursday's program. God bless you.